Hello everybody, I'm Yulong. I'm currently a PhD student at Rutgers University in New Jersey. My advisor is Professor Janne Lindqvist, which is also present here. Today I'm going to talk about our paper, Text-Centered Method Affects Password Security. Now our research problem is pretty straightforward. Can text-centered method affect password generation process and therefore affect the password security? A text-centered method could consist of both physical part and software part of an input device when you enter the text. So physical part could be the keyboards, the key size, and the haptic feedback, the size. And for the software part, it could be the appearance of the text-centered method or the layout of the method. Now on the slide, you can see this is just two examples of many text-centered methods out there, and you can see one is the laptop keyboard and one is the touchscreen keyboard on the smartphone. And you can already see that they are different in various ways in terms of, like I listed, layout, feedback, haptic feedback, and size, and so on. So the problem is important because nowadays more and more activities that involve passwords, such as creating and recalling passwords, are happening on mobile devices. A good understanding of the difference between the passwords created by, the text-centered methods on mobile devices and the passwords created by, traditional text-centered methods is definitely needed. Because otherwise, applying what we know about the, here it should be, what we know about the latter directly to the former would probably lead to insecure passwords created on new text-centered methods, or make the passwords harder to use on new text-centered methods. So that's our research problem. And next, I'm going to go over our method, the method we used in the study. So we conducted a between-group lab experiment with random assignment. This was modeled after a previous study that comparing text password and the graphical password. In our study, we invited participants to come to lab, and then they were asked to create and recall passwords for 3 different virtual accounts, given one particular text-centered method we provided. We have 3 groups, and they are laptop, tablet, and smartphone. You could, yes?
What is the intuition that would make you think that you would find a difference?
Because, like we said, first, like I said, the text-centered methods are different in various ways. So let's take one, for example, the speed. We have studies show that typing on the smartphone is, I think it's only, in average, 1/3 as fast as the right.
I'm sorry I missed this slide, but I understand.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 3 groups, laptop, tablets, and smartphone groups. You could see from the name that they are mostly determined by the text-centered method we provided. And next, I'm going to talk about how we designed the text-centered methods in our groups. So, for the laptop group, which is our control group, we provided a standard laptop physical keyboard. You can see on the right of the slide, on the left of the slide. And for the smartphone, for the tablet and smartphone group, we provided touchscreen keyboards with different layouts. So here, I only show the keyboard for the tablet group. The details of all the keyboards, layouts, and design can be found in the paper, and also I have a slide in the appendix. Here I just want to illustrate the difference with simple examples. Basically, we designed the text-centered methods so that they will provide a different level of difficulty in reaching a certain keys. So here, the example would be if you want to type a $sign using those text entry methods. On the left, you can see on the laptop keyboard, everybody has one actually right now. All you need to do is press the Shift and the number 4 key at the same time. Okay, that would do the job. That would do the job. However, for example, for the tablet group, which is shown on the right, you have to do 2 key presses. First, you have to press the Shift key to switch from the lowercase layout to the numbers and symbols layout, and then you have to locate the $sign and press the $sign to actually type the $sign. So you already can see there is one more key press needed in the tablet group, and also, switching between layouts. This does not happen in the laptop group, and switching between layouts introduce extra overhead in searching keys, the location keys in the new layout. So what we designed is we have this control group with the laptop keyboard, and we make the tablet group, the text entry method in tablet group harder in reaching certain keys than laptop group. And then we made the smartphone, the method in smartphone group even harder in reaching certain keys compared with tablet group. Okay, this is our text entry method used in the study. Next, on the slide, it's the procedure of the study. We have 2 sessions. In session 1, we ask the participants to come to the lab. They will create passwords for 3 different virtual accounts. After that, they will fill up a NASA TLX form. This is a subjective task load assessment form developed by NASA. It was used to rate the perceived workload from the participants' perspective. So it has 6 individual items like physical demand, mental demand, like how mentally demand do you think the task you just performed was. After the filling out the form, participants will complete 2 simple distraction tasks. One is mental rotation, and one is just counting down from 20 to 0. After the distraction task, they were asked to recall the passwords they just created earlier, but with a different order. So the order was determined by the Latin square shift. So that's the session 1. The session 2 happened roughly 10 days after the session 1, in which the participants will come back to us again, and we will ask them to recall the passwords again, and also in a different order. And they will after which they will fill out the TLX form again for this recall task. So this is our procedure of the study. So to estimate the security of the passwords that are created in our study, we used 3 quantitative security metrics that are in the literature. First is called adaptive password transmitter based on Markov models. So basically it is trying to estimate the strength of a password based on the probability of n-grams that's in the password. So the n-gram, so in this particular case, in this paper, it used 4 gram. So a 4 gram would be a substring with length 4 occurred in the password. So if you have the password with string password, the first 4 gram would be PASS, like the second one would be ASSW, like password. So, all right. Now they define the probability of each n-gram as the occurrence. So the input of this model would be first a large password data set, and they will count the occurrence of all the 4 grams in this password data set. And then it defines the probability of each 4 gram as the occurrence of this particular 4 gram over the total occurrences of all the 4 grams that shared the same first 3 letters. So if you want to know the probability of the 4 gram PASS, you will sum up all the occurrences of PASA, PASB until PASD, and also PAS1 until PAS9, and also the symbols. And then you use the count of the PAS divided by the total occurrences. And then you multiply all the probability of all the programs in one particular password, and use the log function to get the score. The next two metrics we use are random entropy and nist entropy. The first were introduced by Janne. It is to quantify the uncertainty in a given string. So the random entropy, it's shown on the first equation. The L is the length of the string, and the N is the number of all the possible characters that could occur in the string. So this equation assumes the string is randomly generated, although in our case the password is not exactly randomly generated. The second one is called nist entropy. It's proposed by NIST in their authentication guide. So this is the proposal is to roughly estimate the human selected password, and basically this nist entropy, which you could see from the second equation, it assigns different amounts of bits onto characters at different positions of given string or given password. And also it has some bonus bits if the password contains only uppercase and non-alphabetic numbers, or the password passed a dictionary check. So that's the three. That are the three metrics we've used to try to estimate the password security. In addition, we also performed three types of practical password cracking attacks. First is a plain dictionary attack, in which, given a password, you go over every entry in a particular dictionary and see if they match each other. So we actually formulated three different dictionaries and performed three different plain dictionary attacks. The second attack is rule-based attacks. It's from a previous work in which the guesses, so you still have to provide a dictionary, but now the guesses are generated by a software based on a fixed set of rules and the dictionary. So a simple example would be if you give an entry in the dictionary, let's say password, you try to capitalize the one possible rule could be capitalize the first letter, or add 1, 2, 3 at the end of the letter of the password. The third attack is an attack using probabilistic context-free grammars. It's also from a previous work. This attack, basically, we still have to provide a dictionary, and you will first formulate a probability model based on this dictionary, and then you generate guesses based on this probability model. So all the details of the attacks and the dictionaries and also the experiment setup could be also found in the paper. So that's roughly an overview of what our method in the study. And next, I'm going to go over the results of our project. So to give an overview, 63 participants recruited and participated in session 1, and 57 came back for session 2. 189 passwords created. Their average password length is 10.6. For reference, the RawQ password dataset has an average length of 8. The RawQ password dataset is a 32 million password dataset from the game site rawq.com, which is compromised and made publicly available by some hackers. Okay, so next. The first graph we want to show is the metrics we used in password structures. You can see on the graph we have 5 of them: the password length, the number of lowercase and letters and uppercase letters, digits and symbols in every single password. The bars shows the main value of each group, and the whisker shows the 95 confidence interval of each group based on bootstrap, because our data was not normally distributed. So you could already see that the password lengths and lowercase letters are different across groups, right? And the rest of them are kind of similar. So we performed a one-way ANOVA test on the first on the password length, and the results showed there existed no statistically significant difference in password lengths across groups. But by calculating the effect size, which is eta squared, we find that the effect size we did have a small effect size for the password lengths across our groups. So and from the graph you could see it's probably because the passwords in smartphone group are longer than the passwords in other two groups. Next, we performed the one-way ANOVA on the lowercase number of lowercase letters across the groups. The results showed there existed statistically significant difference in the number of lowercase letters per password across groups. And you can see from the graph, smartphone group actually created passwords with more lowercase letters. So like we said previously, we designed the text entry method in different groups so that they have hard time reaching certain keys, and particularly in the smartphone, there will be a hard time in reaching non-lowercase letters. So we think this design led to the fact that smartphone group actually created passwords with more lowercase letters than other two groups. So I think the takeaway message for the analysis of password structure is the text entry method did affect the password structure. Next, we compute the scores with our mentioned three different quantitative security metrics across groups, and which is shown on the graph. Again, the bar indicates the mean of each group, and the whiskers indicate the 95% confidence interval. You could already see from the graph, and also yes.
So I'm obligated to ask the statistical question. But on the previous slide, so you had the overall length of the password, then you've got the number of lowercase, all these categories. And I assume those categories add up to the overall length of the password, right?
Yes.
So how could it be that there's a statistically significant increase in the number of lowercase characters, but not an increase in the number of characters overall? Is there some category where there's a bunch of, they didn't use certain kinds of characters, and so that compensated for it?
So I would say that it's probably because you add up all the different characters. You can see for the next three metrics, for example, the digits, it's actually kind of compensate the increase of the lowercase letters, right? I would say that's probably the cause.
Fairly small difference, but okay.
Right. Yeah. But so that's actually the result we get.
If you showed the remaining items rather than absolute numbers, which sort of exaggerate the fact that the smartphone passwords are longer, and showed them as percentage of lowercase letters, percentage of numerals, percentage of other characters, would that change significantly? I've got a gut feeling that what you're seeing in the lowercase letters is purely an artifact of the fact that those are longer, rather than representing any true difference in mix in some way.
So are you saying like instead of the absolute numbers, we show the percentage of lowercase per password?
Right. Because the effect of the longer password is showing up in every one of those mixes in some way, and it could be that I'm sorry, it could be that tipped it to significance in that case, but not in the case of the actual number overall length. It may be a false positive in that sense.
So we didn't do exactly the percentage test, but I would say, because we are interested in the difference in number of lowercase letters. So if we want to do, if we do a test on the percentage of lowercase letters per password, our conclusion would be on the percentage of lowercase letters.
I guess my real question there is, why do you think the number of lowercase letters or the percentage of lowercase letters actually matters?
Okay, I see. Right. So, like I mentioned, in our groups we designed the text-centered method such that in smartphone group it's harder to reach non-lowercase letters. So we want to see if this would affect the password structure, and then which is why we want to compare the difference in the number of lowercase used in password.
I think it seems like, so I think the question might be something like, is the length and lower, there are two measures, length and lowercase, are they correlated? I think that's what you said.
No, I'm actually trying to get at why this matters more than being good, bad, or indifferent passwords.
That's a great question. I was talking about your first
She's
question.
got a problem design. Two slides.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now we look at the quantitative security metrics across the groups. That's it. From the graph, you see they are similar across the groups. And we performed again the one-way ANOVA test, and the test results showed there were no statistically significant difference across the groups. So this is actually different from what we thought. Then we dig a little deeper, so we think one possible reason that caused the similarity of across the groups in such metrics is we correlated the length with the three security metrics we used, and you can see from the red color cells, they are highly correlated with the password length. So, and we also correlated the three metrics with other say features of passwords, such as the create time, which is the time participants used to create each password, and they didn't share a high correlation with the security metrics. So, although this is by no means of a comprehensive analysis of the accuracy of the security metrics we used, but it did point out that password length played a primary role in defining the security when we used the password security metrics here. So we think the one possible reason that we get the similar scores across the groups when we have different password structure across the groups is probably because the security metrics we used are not accurate enough to reflect the true security given one single password. Sorry. Now, so next, this is the. So we performed we performed in total 5 different password cracking attacks. Here on the slide, I show in particular 2 of them. So a complete set of graph could also be found in the appendix. The light color one is a plain dictionary attack. Use the dictionary of passwords. The dictionary of passwords consists of mostly 2 parts. First is the common passwords applied with Mandolin rules. So that would be, for example, password, the first letter is capitalized, or you add a symbol or a digit at the end of the password. And the second part is the Rocky leaked passwords, like I mentioned before. It's from the game site, hacked from the game website. for this dictionary attack, it performed better on laptop than the other two groups. And we think the reason is the patterns of using such mangling rules, like capitalize the first letter, adding symbols at the end of passwords, are actually more common in the laptop group. So this also correlates the fact that in the password structures, the laptop group use different non-lowercase letters more than the smartphone group. So the second attack is using a dictionary of Facebook, which contains the entire searchable directory of Facebook. So this is made by publicly available by Facebook itself. So basically, it's a bunch of names of people and organizations on Facebook that they made themselves searchable in the private configurations. So with this, a bunch of names, real actual names and phrases, this attack performed the best on the smartphone group. Now, one particular reason we think would be because, so not only when we check back the actual passwords created in different groups, we find out that not only the smartphone groups used more lowercase letters per password, they also create more passwords with only lowercase letters. So a graph of different types of passwords in each group could also be found in the appendix. So that's probably why this dictionary attack worked the best on the smartphone group, because like in the laptop group or tablet group, the participants tend to create passwords with just one or two, even just one or two long lowercase letters. That would decrease the effect of this dictionary attack, because this dictionary contains only the names, no symbols or digits. Yes?
So I'm wondering about the Hawthorne effect here, right? So one of the things that's surprising to me is that there's an intelligence here, right, by users, which is always surprising, right? So the password choices on because of the number of choices of keys on smartphones was longer, as if it were they're attempting to make up for the fact that they had fewer easy reachable things, so they made their things longer, right? On the other hand, they're in a lab, right, and so they're being examined, and so maybe their choices in the lab are very different than they choose in the wild. What's your sort of, how does that relate to your work in terms of what conclusions you can draw about what happens in the wild?
So yes, so both of the points are really good points. The first one is we also agree that with fewer choice, let me go back. With fewer choice, on the smartphone group, although they used more lowercase letters, they kind of compensate the security with longer password, right? So they tend to create a long, lowercase only phrases. Right? It's not exactly matching to the security, but we believe that's the case. And also for lab study, yes. Remember we talked about. Let me go back. The average password length in our study is almost 3 characters longer than the actual password data set. So we believe that in a lab environment, people actually, under the supervision, they paid extra effort to this particular task. They think this is important. So yes, that's one point that we get why we get longer passwords. And in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about so we probably need a non-lab study, which is the kind of field study for this particular topic.
Also, we also asked them not to reuse their passwords, because we found in pre-trials that a lot of people reuse their passwords, so we actually asked them to create new passwords, which also affects the results.
So I'm not all that familiar with this area, but the few papers that I've seen when they report the success rates of attacks, I'm used to seeing numbers like 50 or 60% of the amount of the passwords studied that were successfully cracked. And here you have, in the best case, maybe 25% of the passwords cracked. So can you speak a little bit to that? Are you using maybe techniques that sort of aren't as in-depth and computationally intensive as what's typically used, or is there some other explanation for the relatively low rate of cracked passwords?
Okay. So let me actually show. We have another slide. So this is more complicated. So which I leave in the appendix. So this is the complete set of graphs for all the password tags we used. You can see the best result is around 30%. So I think this also could probably due to the fact that participants paid extra effort in this particular study. But the method we used in the best case attack, it's a probabilistic based attack, which should be quite efficient. So I think if I would say the one reason could be participants create extra effort, and one reason could be that this is a small data set. So most of the cracking attacks paper previously are working on like Rockhill data set, like contains 32 million data set. So if we have larger data set, we believe our result would be approaching the ones they had in the paper.
There are a number of readily available, quite effective public domain password crackers that have very high success rates, and it doesn't look like you used any of them. The techniques that you used are involved in those, but they do a number of other things, and they would probably have a much higher success rate here. Is there a reason you didn't use what the hackers use?
We did use what the hackers use.
The actual tools?
Yeah.
I saw mentions of published papers and techniques. I didn't see mentions of particular tools.
Okay.
So we actually used the two most popular cracking software on the publicly available. First is the John the Ripper. It has been quite long. The second is the Hashcat.
Okay, I would recognize that if it had shown up in the slides.
I see. So yeah, I guess I didn't mention the actual softwares we used. But yeah, we used we're trying to be closely to the actual attack that would be issued by the hacker. So that's why we perform different types of attacks. First the dictionary attack, which is clearly a naive approach. Anybody with a dictionary could try that. And then we will advance to rule-based attack and probabilistic attack with also more resources. So the details could be found in the paper. So we will gradually increase the resource used in different types of attack to represent different level of effort in cracking attacks. So this is different from what we learned from the quantitative security metrics, because it did show that groups of passwords in our study demonstrated different resistance against attacks. And in particular, we could correlate this result to the result of the password structures. Like I said, because the smartphone group have more passwords with only lowercase letters, and so it suffered from the dictionary attack with the dictionary of Facebook. Now, next slide is a graph of the TLX score. So the TLX is the subjective task load assessment form we used in both decisions. So you can see the upper above is for the decision 1, the lower graph is for decision 2, and each of them had 6 different individual items. So the 6 individual items are correlated, and you can see each of them, if you examine closely each of them, most of them are also similar. And we ran MANOVA test on the decisions separately, and the results showed there was no statistically significant difference among the scores across groups. So this means subjectively, participants didn't feel the difference in terms of the tasks when provided with different text entry methods.
Yeah, and you have approximately 7 minutes.
Okay.
I just have a question about the TLX task. Do you know whether, when you use the NASA TLX instrument to measure task level, do you know whether the task itself needs to be of some minimum duration before the TLX test is effective? That is, I could imagine that if I undertake a task which is going to take me 30 seconds, right, or maybe two different tasks, each of which takes me 30 seconds, I could imagine that the TLX score might not change much at all. Whereas if I have something that's going to take me several minutes, I might better imagine that the TLX score will change. But I don't really know how this works, so I was just wondering if you could say, or maybe somebody else in here. Frank, do you know?
I think that, as I understand it, the TLX score is designed to be used by, say, a human factors person, someone who's been trained in its use. Now, did you ask your study participants to apply the TLX measure themselves?
I'm not quite. But if you ask about if
Self-reported.
Is it? How did you get the TLX scores?
so, what we did is in the introduction process of the study, we introduced the TLX form in advance, and then in the actual task, we will ask them to fill out this form immediately after the particular task.
So the participants filled out the form, so they judged the various components of the TLX that are shown there, physical, mental.
Right. Yes.
Well, it's subjective outcome assessment definition.
Alright, so I guess I don't have much time left. I'll just go really quick. So that's the overview of our results. We listed a few limitations here. Like mentioned previously, it's probable lab study. We find that let's say for one example, longer passwords were created in our study than the actual password data set. It's possible that lab study introduced extra effort. So, although we also find this previous study that claimed that the lab study generally showed provided useful data in such password study, but in the future we would like to have a field study in this kind of password topics because that would be closer to the actual scenario of using passwords. And also we have a relatively small data set, so a study with larger password data set would be desired. So this one, what we conduct is kind of exploratory study, and we want to verify it with the larger password data set. Last but not least, the comparison here we did is 3 text entry methods in general. So they are different in various ways. So we're wondering if we could do a study that studies specific manipulation of those text entry methods, like how large the effect of text entry method key size would have on the password study, or how the layout would affect, in particular, the password. So in conclusion, first we find text entry method affects password structure in that smartphone groups use more lowercase letters in passwords, and text entry methods affects password security in that the dictionary of passwords work best on the laptop group, while the dictionary of Facebook work best on the smartphone group. So the third point we found is we still do not have a security metric, a quantitative security metric that is properly designed to quantify the security of a single individual password. So we realized there is a lot of recently introduced metric that's applicable to either to a large amount of password data set. Like given this large amount password data set, like rank the security of the passwords, such like that. But we didn't find a proper designed metric for one single particular password. Like given this password, it could tell me how secure it is quantitatively. And the last point is the more studies are definitely needed, like previously I mentioned, because this is more of an exploratory study, and the follow-ups, a lot of follow-ups could be performed in this field. And that's the end of the study. Thanks. Yeah.
You seem to have acknowledged that a kind of a lack of ecological validity in your study might have changed the results, right? I.e., because it was a lab study, things might have been different there than if it had been a field study. So my question is, given the lack of ecological validity, how does your lab study, or how would your lab study inform a field study? What is it that you have learned from the lab study that would make you do, I don't know, a really great field study? What would change you?
I see. Okay. The one thing we could inform is, because we suspect that the lab study introduced extra effort, we would expect, if I say, we would expect, although we don't have, currently don't have evidence, we would expect a larger difference, at least in the number of lowercase used.
Yeah, I understand that what you might expect, but I'm talking about the way that you perform the study, right?
I see.
So what you're talking about here is maybe you're going to get different results in
Right.
the lab and in the field study. Maybe that's true, right? But what I wanted to know is, what did you learn from the lab study that would inform the method by which you conduct a field study, or would you have conducted the field study in the same way anyhow?
I see. Yes, there are lessons we learned. For example, in the lab study, we asked them to create or recall passwords in a row. Like they will create passwords for this account, this account, this account. So this is what we did in the lab study. But we think if we have a field study, we will distribute the creation of different passwords in a span of longer time. Because in real cases, people tend not to create multiple passwords at the same time, also record them at the same time. So one possible modification could be distribute them in longer times. And also, we could add more recall process, because here we only had 2 recall process. We could add more recall process along the way because it's a field study. So that would be 2 points that we think